It takes a lot to keep Donald Trump from centre stage. But there is one family he's willing to step aside for, sometimes. Because he loves the British monarchy.
But this is truly one of the highest honours of my life. Such respect for you and such respect for your country.
And thinks it's key to the so-called special relationship.
But seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice.
President Trump,
but that relationship needs work right now, because while Trump used to love Keir Starmer too, he's not happy since the Prime Minister split with him over the Iran war.
This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
And so the King, the man that ministers see as the real Trump whisperer, arrives today with the Queen. Sources call him the ultimate British diplomat who is charged with smoothing over relations, still coming after a frantic weekend that was less about the chaos of the presidency, but more the chaos in this room. After the sound of gunshots led politicians, diplomats and journalists to duck for cover as the Secret Service whisked the president out. The apparent targeting of such high-profile political figures inevitably raised security concerns about the royal visit. The King and Queen privately reached out to the president, and it was quickly decided that it would go ahead despite the shock of what had happened.
I wasn't worried. I understand life. We live in a crazy world.
A world in which this 31-year-old tutor, Cole Thomas Allen, told his parents he had an interview before travelling by train from California to Washington. Shots were fired as he tried to storm the press gala in the Hilton Hotel, where Trump and most of his cabinet were dining with journalists. He's now been charged. So, what had caused this apparent turnaround from high flyer to would-be assassin? Allen's family called police about a grievance-filled manifesto he sent them at the last moment, including a quote that some felt referred to Trump's association with Jeffrey Epstein and that was read to him in a CBS interview last night.
I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein.
Let us never forget any of the victims and survivors.
Trump is far from the only one to have faced questions about associations with Epstein. Under the shadow of the White House this Saturday, survivors gathered to remember Virginia Giuffre, who accused Andrew Mountbatten Windsor of sexually assaulting her before taking her life last year. He has always denied the allegation.
Today is Virginia's day.
Many wanted Andrew's brother, the King, to meet survivors during this visit, but Buckingham Palace said it wasn't possible.
Apparently the reason he said he won't meet people is they've got legal concerns about prejudicing cases back home. Just what do you think of that?
I think that's what he's supposed to say. That's his legal jargon. But I believe that if he really wanted to, he could meet with us. And I do think it's the decent thing to do as a leader. And it would mean a lot to us. We've all been through so much, and we're going to continue fighting whether he meets with us or not.
From my understanding, the King cannot meet with the survivors. He's already said his reasons why he can't meet with us. But what the King can do is support public inquiry in the UK.
Would you like to see him, other members of the royalty, meet with survivors?
Well, I'll leave that to the survivors to say, and I know that they've got busy schedules, but I'm sure they would welcome support from all over the world and from everywhere. And certainly, if the British monarchy can be taking this seriously, American democracy should be able to take this seriously.
Back at the White House, preparations are underway for the arrival of King Charles to the court of King Donald. and a test of whether the US-UK special relationship can be redeemed with a royal summons. So the King and Queen are still in the air, but they are due to land in the next half an hour at Joint Base Andrews. They're due to come here to the White House. They'll be met by Donald Trump and his First Lady Melania. They're going to be shown a new beehive on the South Lawn, shaped, get this, like the White House. And then they're going to have tea before going to a garden party at the British Embassy. It all sounds very jolly, but as you said, the backdrop politically is difficult, not just over the issue of Iran, but also on climate change, which we know King Charles cares deeply about. Also, we have that heightened atmosphere after that shooting this weekend. Donald Trump saying that the King is brave to go ahead. There have been discussions about security. Some events have been narrowed down somewhat. And then also here, a spat has blown open that we've heard before between Donald Trump and Melania and the late night chat host Jimmy Kimmel. Before what happened this weekend, he did a skit about that dinner in which he joked about Melania and he described her as having the glow of an expectant widow. Well, he obviously didn't know what was about to happen next, but since it has, she has reacted with fury. She's called him a coward, saying his hateful rhetoric is corrosive. And Donald Trump has weighed in as well. He says it was a call for violence. He said he is sickened by it and he has called for him to be fired. This could lead to more tensions between the late night host and the White House, and perhaps more broadly the conversation that is happening over here around media freedom, and perhaps once again using what has happened to try to limit that media freedom. Perhaps those conversations will not come up so directly with the King and Queen.
Thanks, Anushka. Well, earlier I spoke to the former British ambassador to Washington, Sir David Manning, for today's forecast. He's also a former advisor to Princes William and Harry. We spoke about the UK-US relationship and the King's approach to diplomacy.
I've seen him in action, and he's a very effective diplomat. He's very good at reaching out to people. And I think, it's important to remember that diplomacy is talking to people you often don't agree with. And I think he's able to connect, and I'm quite sure he's able to put across his own views that may not at all be the same views as Trump, but without being provocative about it. I think he may be able to remind Trump of all sorts of things that have been very important in the relationship, like the contribution to the British Armed Forces, like our relationship over, successive international crises.
Do you think the government will want this visit to make things a bit easier for Keir Starmer?
I think they want the visit to make things easier to discuss the issues that are difficult between us. The special relationship, I think, remains special in some respects because the commitment that we have to one another in the defence, intelligence and nuclear fields continues day by day, whatever Trump says. But of course, it makes it much more difficult to sustain. I'm wary of this term and always have been in my own case, because I think it's made Britain lazy. I think it's always made us think, oh, well, whatever happens, the Americans will have our back. And we now find with Trump, who doesn't share our values or our outlook, that this isn't necessarily true. And I think trying to manage it through this Trump period is what we have to do.
And you can hear more from Sir David Manning on the latest episode of The Forecast, where he's discussing the King's trip with Julie Montague, the Countess of Sandwich, and the Liberal Democrat MP Al Pinkerton. It's on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, let's talk now to Alexandra Hall. She was a British diplomat whose last posting was to the embassy in Washington, and she still lives in the city. How much clout do you think the King has?
So I don't think he has as much clout as the Queen did. He doesn't have the same star wattage that the Queen had. And Americans, contrary to some of the perceptions in the UK, are not all obsessed with the monarchy. And I was actually quite struck how not a single American of my acquaintance appears to even know the visit is taking place. I think it will be registering today and tomorrow. But there's been no big fanfare on this side of the pond about the visit. But the visit isn't really, the purpose of the visit is really between the UK government and the US administration right now. It was obviously planned a long time ahead of the Trump administration because it's supposed to be celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So it's supposed to be about the broader UK-US relationship. But at this time and at this moment, it is very much about current bilateral relations.
But whatever the population think, Trump clearly sort of, purrs when he talks about the royal family, and he loves his relationship with them. I suppose he likes hanging out with kings. So it doesn't really matter, does it, what the rest of America thinks? I mean, the point is, it's about Trump's relationship both with the king and the UK as a state.
Well, I think it depends if you take a short-term or a long-term view. And generally, I think our king takes a long-term view. And Trump is interested in what happens this week. So he will want the visit to be a success. He will want to bask in the apparent approbation of the British royal family. And he will get a lovely state dinner, especially after the cancelled White House correspondence dinner. But the king will be thinking about it in terms of a much longer historical time frame, and he'll certainly, I suspect, use the visit to remind his interlocutors of the longer time frame. And there's a really key point here that I think people make errors about over and over again. There is so much focus on Trump and trying to get on with Trump and trying to get on with the Republicans, but this is still a two-party country. And if you are seen to be getting literally too close to Donald Trump, there's another political party here who that will not go down well with. And I think we must keep politics out of this relationship. We cannot allow the visit to appear as if it's endorsing Donald Trump. And there's been quite a lot of negative criticism on social media about why is the king coming here and why is he endorsing this man who a lot of Americans don't approve of. So I think he has to be a little bit careful there. I'm sure the king will be aware of that, but I think sometimes so many commentators are obsessed on the Trump issue, they are missing that wider lens.
Alexandra Hall, thank you very much.